Welcome. We're doing a tier maker on video game controllers. Now this list is something else because it isn't just controllers for consoles, it is portable consoles themselves as well. So we have not just controllers for consoles, but look, we have the PSP, we have the Game Boy Advance, we have the Nintendo DS, DSi, 3DS. So I like this list a lot because the controllers for consoles they're going to be fun to rate, but the feel of the controls on a handheld, well, that's great too, right? We should be talking about those too. They count as controllers. So let's do it. I think this will be a good one. All right, I zoomed in a bit. Let's see if my fat head is in the way. A little bit. Okay. Now here's the beauty of this list. Oh, and by the way, I'm adding a row. And we're naming it F tier. Don't even get me started. Oh, this tier maker is so sketchy. Okay. Okay. All right, we'll zoom out a little bit. Well, jeez. Can I not do like 160? Because that would be perfect. This is too small and this is too much of my head. Ooh, you know what I'll do? I'm going to scoot myself over. Sorry, I'm kind of... There we go. That's better. Okay, here we go. I'm not trying to do this in chronological order or anything. We're just going to do it as it stands. And I'm looking at this list and I think I've used everything except the Wii U. So I will put the Wii U at the bottom because I never owned, nor did I ever really play a Wii U. I played a test kit Wii U for an unnamed Sega game that was being ported for the Wii U and ended up not happening. If you're curious, I wore the t-shirt for the game. It came out on other platforms. I wore it on my last stream 2 nights ago. And that's all I'll say about that. Alright, let's start this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to try to put the consoles together before we do this. Xbox. Where'd you go? Oh, shit. Nintendo. Oh, this is going to be too tough to do. Never mind. Alright. This is the PlayStation 1 controller. It's D tier. Oh, and by the way, I may work for a Sony, might be a parent company for my company. My opinions do not reflect my employer. And by the way, let me just state for the record, I am not a fanboy of any one console. I think Nintendo does some things really, really well. I was on original Xbox and Xbox 360. Those were my favorite consoles for the time. The original Xbox was the first to have 5.1 digital surround when no other console did that. Huge, because I had a 5.1 setup in my apartment. Having the surround sound in games was amazing. Not the simulated, but the actual channel separation. And Xbox Live was fantastic. But I had a PS2, I had a PS3, I have a PS4, I had a PS5. Sony has made huge gains in the last couple of generations. The PS4, I think, was a stronger console than the Xbox One. I don't own a Series X. It looks like they've made some improvements around the interface, which the interface was the biggest problem I had for the first couple of years of Xbox One. Apparently they fixed that, and they improved it and made it a lot more usable. I think the PS4 was a stronger console. I have a Switch. It's fantastic. I have some issues with it, and we'll get into that in a minute, but I am not a fanboy of any one specific of the three. And I worked for Sega for 7.5 years, but we were not a console manufacturer when I started there. They were already out of the Dreamcast business a couple years before I came over, maybe a year and a half. No, it was more than that. So, when I speak of Sega, it will be unbiased. It will be as a consumer of the product and not someone who was an employee there. I am no longer paid by Sega. I say whatever I want within my NDA. Okay. So that's the PS1 controller. It's flimsy. It was cheap. This is before analogs, because later on they came with the DualShock, and the DualShock was good. All right. Now we're looking through the lens of 2021. We're not talking about, or we're not looking through the lens of 2021. I'm thinking back to the time that I had it. No, because that won't be right. We have to be looking through the lens of 2021. I screwed up. And as far as 2021 is concerned, the DualShock, the first DualShock for the PS1, was a damn good controller that didn't have enough games that used it, and the analogs were too close together. That was also my problem with the PS3 controller. Where's the PS2 controller? Are they calling this the PS2 controller? They are calling it the PS2 controller. Even though it was kind of like the DualShock, which came out on the PS1. We'll go ahead and call it the PS2 controller. Still a C. Didn't feel like the feel of the analogs, but I liked the feel of the analogs on this one even worse. And I'll tell you, the PS3 controller was a step down. 6-axis was terrible. What were they thinking? It was a gimmick that was totally just not worth it. The analogs felt soft and mushy. You'd accidentally click the analogs when you're moving around all the time. The accidental clicks on the analogs were constant. It drove me crazy. But the PS4 controller, now we're talking. This is one of the best controllers out there. They didn't offset the analogs, which I still wish they would do, because I do like when Xbox had their offset analogs. I think that was genius. But there's enough distance to where you're not bumping your thumbs against each other. And I do put the analog kind of towards the joint of my thumb, so I've got a little bit of give sometimes. And on those older controllers, I would bump my thumbs together. That's not the case on the PS4 controller. Never had that problem. So also the touchpad works really well, and using it as a big button you can reach up and touch to bring up a map, that feels so much better than pressing an options button or start or pause button. So that stuff, all fantastic. It also is Bluetooth, so you can use it on almost any device that has Bluetooth. This may have been the pinnacle for Sony in terms of controllers until the PS5. Man, that controller, the only complaint I have about the PS5 controller, the DualSense they call it, the battery life isn't great. The battery life's not great, but I'll tell you what, the touchpad is just as good, maybe a little bit better. The LEDs built into it are classy. It's not a big flashlight in the front like the PS4. It feels substantial. It has a microphone built in. You can chat with your friends without even wearing a headset. Brilliant. I don't know how many people actually use it, but it's a brilliant idea. And I'm telling you, they nailed so much about that controller. It is an improvement upon an already damn good, if not almost great controller with the PS4. So that is where we stand on Sony consoles. We'll get to the handhelds later. I'm going to save them for later. Let's do Nintendo. Okay. This I'm going to put as a B, and here's why. It's iconic. This is the 8-bit controller, so if you're not familiar, which who was watching this that doesn't know? Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to put this wire down here. It's pissing me off. I'm wearing a black t-shirt. It's not that visible. I just don't like when I'm wearing like a white t-shirt and this wire's hanging here. The NES is iconic. The controller is iconic. The button press on them, on the B and the A buttons, feel solid. The right amount of give. The D-pad, crispy. Over the decades. I'll tell you right now, I still have my original NES. It's in this house. And I set it up every once in a while. And it still works. And the controller has been thrown. It has been hit with things. I had a roommate once who bit the controller a couple times. He wasn't a thrower, he was a biter. He would bite the controller when he'd get mad. I came home in time from work and I pulled up my NES because we had drinking games around NES games that I had, Arch Rivals, Track and Field. We would play drinking games. And I swear, I picked up that controller and I saw teeth marks. And I was like, yo, are these teeth marks on my controller? He's like, Adventures of Lolo. Fucking hate the last couple levels. I'm like, you're a biter? I still have the controller that has a bite mark in it. These things were sturdy. You could run them over with a car. The reason they're not rated higher is, looking through the lens of 2021, they're very limited. It's also not ergonomic. You know, you don't feel it the same way you feel a regular, like a newer controller. But man, they might be the pinnacle. And I'm gonna put the Super Nintendo right up there with it. They added 4 more buttons, so Y and X, L and R. They made so many great changes. It didn't feel quite as substantial. Like, you couldn't maybe use it as a murder weapon. There was a little bit more flex in the controller. So that's why I'm putting it a tiny bit behind the NES, but I'll tell you, the Super Nintendo controllers also have lasted a long time. I still have my original Super NES. I still have the original 2 controllers. They still work. To this day. I bought that with my high school graduation money in '93. And it still works. So, nothing but love for Nintendo's first 2 major consoles. It gets a little spotty when we get up into these. I'm going to put the Nintendo 64 controller as a C. Now listen. Fanboys, get off my ass. I already hear what you're saying. I know what you're saying. That thing was ridiculous. Don't tell me it wasn't. There's a trigger underneath. There's an analog up there. You could hold it like 4 different ways. You could use it to wash your car. Like, I hated the button placement all over that thing. Hated the button placement. It was too much. Now, I'm sure there were times when some of those buttons came in handy. But then when they came out with the wireless version, the Wavebird, everyone just bought the Wavebird. Which, I'm sorry, is the Wavebird on here? It's not. The Wavebird was a fantastic controller. The wireless version of the N64 controller. Wavebird. Let's look it up real quick. Oh, Wavebird was the GameCube. Oh, that's right. I'm ahead of it a little bit. Okay. My apologies. Wavebird was for the GameCube. But the Wavebird still isn't on here. Okay. I'm giving it a C. I did not like the controller on the N64. And all those different colors, it looked like a play school toy. Like, come on. But if we're being honest, let's be honest, man. The GameCube controller is trash. The Wavebird's better. I mean, it's the same controller, but it was wireless, and the wireless connections on it worked great. If the Wavebird was here, it would be up 1 notch because it takes the wire away, but it's still the same controller. I said the Wavebird's great. I was wrong. The GameCube controller is terrible. All these different colors. There's a D-pad, but it's like floating down there. I mean, it's offset analogs. Like, they borrowed a little bit from Xbox. But what are these buttons? What were they thinking with these buttons? Here's one giant button, and here's a little red one over here, and then here's an analog that does, it's like a pointy nub. What were they thinking? Uncomfortable to use. The buttons, the trigger buttons up here, were like felt funky. I didn't play my GameCube very much because I hated that controller. Sorry, I did. I know, go ahead. Lay into me. Lay into me. I know. I'm sure there's probably a Nintendo fanboy who's going to lay into me on this, and I'm sorry. The GameCube controller is ass. Luigi's Mansion. I didn't say the games on the GameCube were ass, but the controller's ass. Alright? Now, where are we? We're at the Wii. The Wiimote. Oh my god. The controller didn't make it easier. No, it didn't. You're fighting against it. Alright. The Wiimote. It's either B or C. I'm not sure which one. I have to respect the tech. I have to. The technology in it, and I know they had the Pro extension or whatever they called it that made it truly one-to-one. It didn't really need it. For most of the games you played, it was accurate enough. Wii Sports, still one of the greatest selling games of all time because it was packed in with the console, and it is one of the best-selling consoles of all time. So, I gotta respect the tech. Turning it sideways and trying to use it to play old school games didn't feel good. Right? And that was their thing. They're like, well, we've got all these old school NES and Super NES games that you can play by turning your Wiimote sideways. No. It's terrible like that. It's like a fat candy bar. It's like two Snickers on top of each other. But if you're going to do that, then you're going to use a different controller for it. You're going to use this Wii controller, which, if you're playing Super NES games or NES games...
For the dogs.
Oh my god! Jay Skewball with $100 donation! Dude! Oh, thank you so much. I see you. How you been? How you been, Jay? We gotta go to a concert one of these nights, man. For the Doggos is right. Holy crap. That is fantastic. Thank you so much. We will add that to the total here as soon as I'm done with this tier maker, but thank you. And I hope you're doing well, man. I do. I've lost my train of thought. All is well. All is well. We're doing some great things here, and you're a part of it now. So thank you so much for that. I'm ranking video game controllers, and they include portable consoles, which I think is smart. So I'm sticking to the actual consoles themselves right now. And I think the Wii Pro controller, or whatever it was, the wired one that you use on the Wii, if you're only playing Super Nintendo games or NES or Super NES games, it's fine. And I'm sure if you're going to play Smash Brothers or whatever, it was fine. But the analogs are so close together, it doesn't feel ergonomic. It was solid. Like, it felt solid. But it wasn't a very good controller. It was passable at best, so we'll give it a C. Now this is going to take us to the Wii U. I've only used it a little bit. I like what they tried to do by having the screen there, but you're not going to look down to look for a map. You're just not. Now, having it as, you could have it as a portable device and play on it while your console was in another room. Your kid comes in, they want to watch TV, you just switch it to the controller and you could take it into the next room and play. That was great, but that was kind of like the Switch before the Switch. The console was still in the room. So the Wii U helped birth the Switch, and that in and of itself is worth some respect. But yeah, as a controller itself, it wasn't great. Now this Wii U controller, I don't like where they put the analogs on it, but we're going to put it up here and we're going to put it ahead of the Wii Pro Controller. I don't remember if that's what they call it, but I'm going to call it the Wii Pro Controller. Ah, man, I'm still floating after that donation. Thank you again, Jace Cuball. Appreciate that. And we've had a bunch of resubs tonight too, so we're adding to the total for sure. Thursday morning I'll be making the donation, and I'll be matching every penny. So that $100, whatever that nets out to after Streamlabs takes their cut, it's like $95 or $96. I'm going to add to that. I will throw in my own. Put my money where my mouth is. So this takes us to the Switch. Jesus Christ. Okay, fine. We'll put it up to D, but here's the problem. The Joy-Con drift problem with the Switch, I'm surprised Nintendo has gotten such a pass on this. I'm very surprised. I like that there's a screenshot button. The home button is good. The placement of the plus and minus buttons is in such a weird, it's so weirdly placed from the analogs that you've got to take off your thumbs and make a weird reach to get them. Which, having to do it in-game quickly isn't usually a thing, so that's not a problem. But the biggest problem is the Joy-Con drift. I'm on my second left controller for the Switch, and I'm having Joy-Con drift on that too. So I basically need to get a third left analog. Now, I used to play a ton of Animal Crossing. I finally quit cold turkey about 2 weeks ago, after playing it for over a year, almost a year and a half straight. Yeah, 1st of August up through launch. I played it every single day from launch day in March of 2020 through first week of August. It filled time. It was a nice calming thing in the mornings. I don't want to have to keep replacing these Joy-Cons because of the drift. Are they using cheap parts? I think so. Joy-Con drift is not really a problem with any other controller on this list, so it gets dinged hardcore for that. The concept of being able to take them off and put them into a dock, or to hand one to a friend and use it, and turning them sideways to use them as like 2 players, horrible experience, especially if you've got the right one. The left one's a little bit better. All of those things. This is not a knock against the Switch itself. Like I said, the Switch is a fantastic device. But as controllers go, the Joy-Cons are not very good. Are there any other Nintendo? Oh, the Nintendo Pro Controller. Now we're talking. Let me tell you something. They finally got a controller right. It's $70. I usually catch them on sale for $54 or $59. That's when I bought mine. Actually, I think I bought mine on eBay. It's a fantastic controller. The battery life is insane. All right, there's no rumble in them. Is there rumble? I think that's the only thing. I need to look that up. Does the Switch Pro controller have rumble? I don't remember if it does or not. It does have rumble. Okay, my bad. It's got the Pro Rumble. It should. It's bigger than the Joy-Cons. The battery life's incredible. The analogs finally are in the right place. You can reach up and press the plus and minus button without having to adjust the way your hands are gripping. It's a little bit of a stretch, but not too bad. The buttons, the B and A and the Y and X, they're a little bit mushier than I'd like, but they're very workable. the only real complaint I have, and this is a problem with the Switch itself because it's the same thing with the Joy-Cons, is the two bottom triggers, was it like ZL and ZR? They're not analog. So if you're playing a racing game and you're using gas and brake, you can't feather the gas. It's all on, all off. So you gotta sit here and do this and make your jokes. But that's a problem with the Switch itself. I would like to have a controller that had analog, because there are some really good racing games that are portable on the Switch. Okay. Xbox should be pretty easy to knock out. Now, I wish they had the S controller in here, so we're missing the Wavebird, which the Wavebird's really just a wireless version of that GameCube controller. I wish we had the Xbox S controller for the original Xbox, because that controller was awesome. I'm going to rate the Duke a lot higher than most people because I have large hands, and I finally felt like someone was listening to me. That gigantic logo in the middle, stupid, right? Totally stupid. The thing is massive, and yet it's almost as big as the Xbox itself, but it didn't weigh a lot. Like, you could tell they kind of cut some corners on the quality, but man. Oh, and the button placement's terrible too. The Y and the X and B and A, they're off at these weird angles, and then the black and white buttons up there. I just talked myself out of having it in B. Let's be honest. And most people would rank it as a D or an F. But again, I got big hands, and having a large controller was fantastic. The fact that it was mass-produced like that blew me away. Oh, and you could break away the cable. So you could pull the cable off, have the cable on the ground, and then put the controller somewhere. It's no more of your roommate walking through the living room and kicking the wire and like pulling your controller off and knocking shit over. Huge, huge game changer. But let's be honest, that button placement above the right analog, it's pretty shit. But they were the first, I believe, to have offset analogs. Where's the Dreamcast controller? Oh my god. Okay, I like this list until there's no Dreamcast controller. What were they thinking? The Dreamcast controller was the first controller to have analog triggers in the back. It also had that VMU, which was kind of worthless, but you could use that. It was a memory stick that went in there, and you put your game saves in it. You could take them to a friend's house. So if you're going to play NFL 2K1 or Virtua Tennis or whatever, you could bring your game saves with you in the controller. Brilliant. Wasn't a fan of all the different colors on the buttons, honestly. They didn't have to do that. And the feel of the buttons themselves, a little shoddy. But the analog felt good. The D-pad was above average. And let me tell you, those triggers, dude, they were game changers. Game changers. If the Dreamcast controller was on this list, it would probably be a high B, because it's the first to have to have the triggers. There's not enough Sega on this list, Treebeard. We have a Genesis controller, which, I'm sorry, those three buttons were kind of good for fighting games, but not really. It's not a good controller. It's not. The Genesis controller was not good, especially when you had the SNES controller, which I'll give the Genesis controller credit for one thing. It had a little bit more of an ergonomic shape. But it's so weird how controllers have changed over the years, isn't it? There's not enough Sega on this list, and that disappoints me. Whoever made this might be really young. Alright, back to the Xbox. The Xbox 360 controller. It has to be. It has to be. In fact, I got to put it above the PS5 controller. I have to. It was the first controller to feel really substantial and to have the perfect button placement for everything The D-pad, I didn't really play a lot of fighting games on it, so the D-pad was the one knock that most people had about it. I never had a problem with it. If I played platformers with it, it was perfectly fine. Super Meat Boy finished it with that D-pad, no problem. I had one of those Energizer battery packs and an Energizer stand, and I would just slip it in there and recharge it, pull it out, and go. Thousands of hours. No disconnect problems. No having to resync it. It just worked, and it felt perfect. And when you got your hands on it for the first time, like when Best Buy had a demo unit set up for Call of Duty 2, I was on the fence about buying a 360 at launch. I got my hands on that demo unit like a week before launch, and I was like, holy shit, I need one of these. Like, this feels perfect. The game looks fantastic. Why am I not pre-ordering one of these? I stood in line with a friend of mine for 13 hours at Best Buy, the flagship store up here in the Dallas area. And I got one on launch day. It was fantastic. The 360 is probably the best controller on this list. I'm going to put the Xbox One controller here. I'm going to put it ahead of those two. Some improvements upon the 360 controller, but the initial launch units didn't ship with Bluetooth, and that is a mistake that they later on rectified. Now, I know the 360 controller didn't have Bluetooth, but at the time, Bluetooth game controllers weren't really that popular. And the PS3 wasn't Bluetooth, not until the PS4 came out. So when the PS4 came out of the box with Bluetooth, the Xbox One controller, I think Microsoft realized we fucked up and we've got to make a Bluetooth version. And they did, and the Xbox Series X is all Bluetooth. But if you've watched my stream of Cuphead and you saw the problems I was having with my controller disconnecting, the range on the Bluetooth is really spotty sometimes. My PC is right here. I can reach over and almost touch it. There, I just touched my PC. That's how fucking close I am to my computer. And I still get dropouts sometimes. So the Bluetooth range on it is a little spotty for me. And I don't like the feel of the Xbox button on the Xbox One controller. The feel of the original, when you press that in and seeing that player one light up, crisp, smooth. I loved it. JSQ says, mine red ring 2 days after I got it. I had to put an antenna on my PC to get Bluetooth stable. You know, that's a great idea. I didn't really think about that. I will tell you this, though. I have a friend in the industry who works for a peripheral company. He is getting me a pro controller from his company. I'm going to see him this weekend. He's going to hook me up. So next week's streams, I will have a brand new controller. And it's got a couple of buttons in the back. It has all these parts you can swap in and out. Super customizable. I can't wait. It's wired, but that's fine. That's fine. I'm not going to mess around with any dropouts of Bluetooth or anything. I'm just going to have it over here. I'll plug it in. I'll run the wire underneath, and I'll have it right here. We'll be good to go. More Cuphead. No, Treebeard, that's uninstalled. So my Xbox 360 did not red ring until late in the cycle of the console cycle. Well, I like having wireless because I have a lot of shit on this small space right here, and I hate having more wires. I had a wireless headset. I switched to this wired one because these Sennheisers sound so much better than the Astros that I had. And nothing against Astro, they make good headsets. Sturdy. But this thing, I can wear this for hours, and it doesn't bother me. The surround sounds better. And it's Sennheiser. They make really good shit. So it's worth having a wire for the difference in quality. They're also fully open back, so I can hear everything around me, which I like. As a streamer, and my dogs need to go outside, that kind of stuff's important. My Xbox 360, so all my friends had red rings before I did. And I was like, you suckers. A buddy of mine had a red ring, and he just went out and bought another console because he was playing something else. I can't remember what he was playing. And he's like, I'll just buy it and keep the receipt. He never took it back. So He got a second red ring on his original unit. He just took the hard drive off, shipped it back, slapped it on the other Xbox, and he just played with that until he got the one back. Right? Good problem to have. I borrowed his backup when mine finally red ringed. I was playing Tomb Raider Underworld, and my graphics card started to go out in it. All these colors started acting weird for like 30 minutes. I'm like, what's going on? And then red ring. So it hit me too, but it was late in the console cycle. Riz, hello, I am here and filled with rage immediately. GameCube F. Yeah, it's a shit tier controller. Switch D. Yeah, the Joy-Con drift on the Nintendo Switch controller. Hey, Riz, you weren't here when I started talking about this. You don't just get to come in and look at the ratings and then dunk on me. You missed the conversations. That GameCube controller is some play school bullshit that was made by somebody who was missing an eyeball or something. It was not a good controller. The Switch, I have had 2 left controllers that both have Joy-Con drift. I need to buy a third. I'm so mad at them. I'm not going to buy it. Why do we give them a pass? Why do people just go, oh, Joy-Con drift. Oh, I got some Joy-Con drift. How are you not knocking down people's doors and yelling at them? I don't understand. It makes me mad. Also, turning them sideways to use them with a friend, it's terrible, terrible experience. The controller's perfect for the GameCube. What are you talking about? You heard what I'm talking about. Jay Skewball. I think I had 3 to 4 that red ringed. Oh my god, no, I just had the one. Now, when Xbox 360 came out with that black version, that like piano black, they announced it at E3, I went and pre-ordered it as soon as I got back from E3, and I replaced my old one, and that one lasted for like the last couple years or whatever. So there's a reason that people wanted the GameCube controller on the Wii. Well, yeah, if they're playing Smash, and I got no problem with people who want to play Smash on a different console and they use some other wired controller. It's cool. Meanwhile, we made a bunch of money reflowing 360s because it was so easy. Oh, I bet, Treebeard, because you were working for a company that fixed them, didn't you? Listen, Riz, I like Nintendo. Clearly, the Nintendo Switch Pro controller is a fantastic controller. They figured out controllers. They quit being stupid. The Wii Remote, not great to turn sideways and play old school games, but the technology, you got to respect it. The Wii wired controller, We fixed consoles and computers back in those days. There you go. Okay, finally, we're going to talk about the controllers on the handheld devices. So, Game Boy. I love the feel of the Game Boy buttons. I love the feel of the Game Boy buttons, but I can't put it above the actual. I'm going to put it right there. The feel of the Game Boy buttons, of the D-pad and the B and A, is just as crisp as on the actual NES controller themselves. I don't know if they use some of the same parts, but man, I have my Game Boy here. You want to see it? You think I'm kidding? I bought this because my original game. This is not my original Game Boy. My original Game Boy is gone. I got it when I was a sophomore in high school. I bought this at a video game convention here in the Dallas area about 3
Would you like to know more?
About 3 years ago. Oh, thank you, Heavy Hand Swings. So, Riz, I did talk about that. I have large hands, okay? I can palm a basketball. That's why I have the Duke rated as a C. The button placement's terrible, but just the fact that it fit my hands, and Treebeard, you know what I'm talking about. You're like 6'8". Yes, big hands. This is coming from someone with large hands. So if you have small hands, you probably are okay with the Switch Joy-Cons. But don't tell me the Joy-Con drift is not a problem, because it's a problem. And it's a problem that more people give them a pass on than they should. Big hands suck for Joy-Cons. Yeah, they do. Treebird would know. I don't have any audio. I'm only here to annoy you about playing Valorant. Well, we're not there yet, Heavy, but thanks. I can palm 3 venti cups from Starbucks. Venti's 20, right? Here's my Game Boy. It works. Oh, I don't have batteries in it because I don't want the batteries to go bad, to like explode in it. It does work though. It does work. And I've got Tetris in it. What other games do I have here? I have like 2 others. Like, so my batteries are in here loose. This came with it. Game & Watch Gallery 3. This came with it when I bought it, and the case came with it as well. And then I purchased from one of the vendors there Tetris and Tecmo Bowl. All right. I can hold 3 iced venti cups with one hand. That's pro level. All right, so the Game Boy. Oh, those buttons. Those are satisfying clicks. All right. But we're going to put it as a B because I think that's fair. I think there's not enough buttons, right? Because again, I'm trying to rate these from 2021, from the eyeballs of 2021, and not from back in the day. So speaking of the controllers today, it's a B. Yeah, all you kids that grew up on GameCube, get the fuck out of here. Your nostalgia glasses are blocking the fact that the GameCube controller was made for play school. All right, it's Fisher-Price bullshit. That analog nub on the bottom right, horrible. That floating D-pad down there, terrible. The different sized buttons, what were they thinking? All right? Now, I dunked on the Nintendo 64 controller for some of the same reasons, but at least I understood a little bit about that controller. Okay, bye. Resident Evil 4 was a better experience in the PS2. Look, I don't want to start a fanboy conversation or fangirl conversation. I'm just telling you, my opinion as someone in 2021 who has large hands is that some of these controllers are better than others. And I love the Nintendo Switch, but those Joy-Cons, the drift in the Joy-Cons is terrible, and they're not made for people with large hands. They're just not, because it's portable. I understand that. The Nintendo Pro Controller, fantastic for the Switch. Love it. Boomer opinion. Not a boomer, but okay. Nintendo 64 controllers, hot garbage. Who has 3 hands? You're right. You're right. I'm ranking it a little higher because all the hours I spent playing GoldenEye over at a friend's house. Are you trying to tell me the GameCube controller is better than the Nintendo 64 controller? I'm listening. Like I don't want to say I value your opinions, but I'm listening. Kappa, I'm fucking with you. I agree. The Nintendo 64 controller had too many damn handles. What the fuck were they thinking? You can hold it like this, you can hold it like this, you can hold it like this. And the analog on the Nintendo 64 is trash. But it's even worse on the GameCube. What was that yellow knob with the freaking... There's nothing to put your thumb onto. It's terrible. Alright. So, we did the Game Boy. Love the feel of the buttons. Game Boy Advance. Man, not good. Those buttons are so cheap. I'll put it back here. The buttons felt so cheap and squishy. As a device, it's not bad. But the control buttons themselves, I hated the feel of those. They felt so cheap. Now, Game Boy Advance SP. Game Boy Advance SP, right? Is that what it's called? We're going to go a little bit higher on that one. Buttons felt a little bit better. And the fact that you could fold it in your pocket, it was a flip phone. Better. Felt better, but still cheap. Like Nintendo was cutting corners at this point in their career. Cutting tons of corners. And they weren't quite crazy like a fox yet. They were just crazy. Like Nintendo 64, GameCube, this is the same era. And the people who were designing these controllers, they were just nuts. Like they were kids in a candy store and they were just like dreaming up wild shit. Some of it didn't work and some of it didn't. Top tier Wheeler Snark. Oh god, is that when I said Kappa? You're gonna get me banned, aren't you? I've lost 2 followers since this stream started. Are you serious? Did I really just lose 2 followers because of my opinions on controllers? SP was a quality device, no question. First backlit device, first backlit screen, 100%. Quality. The feel of the buttons themselves. We're talking about the controllers, not the device. The controls in them, I wasn't as happy about. Also, it was kind of like having large hands in the Nintendo Game Boy Advance SP was a little bit too small for my hands. Yeah, you guys are like, you're getting what you deserve. Losing followers. You know what? Fine. This is InfoWars. I'm Alex Jones. We're talking about controllers. I'm objectively wrong about GameCube. Well, your opinions are objective as well. To yourself. All right, this is the Nintendo DS Lite. No, this is the DS. This is the 3DS. DS Lite. I'm gonna put it a little bit ahead of the Advance SP. The two-screen gimmick worked for some games and not so much for others, but Nintendo was starting to realize they could use their power for good. Yeah, that's the thick boy. My hands are outliers. Well, it's my list. I want to see your list. You should go. You know what? I'll post this in the chat, and y'all can go. And you can make your own version and post a picture of it in the Discord. I would love to see your version of this list. Yeah, not the Lite. That's the regular DS, right? I had the DS Lite. The DS Lite was a little white one. It was almost like this, but this is the 3DS. And the 3DS controls, high C, because the D-pad felt good. The face buttons felt good. I wasn't really crazy about the button placement with the home button and the start and select down in the middle. It worked okay. The analog nub, it's better than the PSP. Because that's way down here. Loved my PSP, still have it. But the analog nubs, and they're trying to keep the profile low. I understand that. Horrible. Trying to play games with that analog nub, terrible. Like driving games, kinda. There just wasn't much give. The little slider things, terrible. But I loved my PSP anyway, and I played a shit ton of games on it. I just used the D-pad a lot. Yeah, the thumbstick on the left, that's what sets it off. That's what makes it the 3DS. The Vita. Vita's up there. I still have my Vita. Vita's up there. The controls on the Vita, one of the best handhelds in terms of controls. Nintendo, fix your Joy-Con issue with the Switch, and I'll move you up to a high C. All right? But you're still not going to be up there with the Vita or the original Game Boy. The controls, the feel of those controls and those devices, they finally had analogs that were a little shallow, but they worked. You had the right range of motion on them. You couldn't click them. There was no L3 or R3. That was the only problem if you're using it to do mirror play, share play from your PS4, PS3. You couldn't click the analogs. They had to do this weird thing where you like tap the back of the. Okay, the controls on the back of the screen, terrible idea. Turn that shit off. The buttons themselves felt really good on the Vita, though. We'll put it just right behind the Game Boy. Yeah, Treebeard, there's a few things that are missing from this list. So we talked about this earlier. The Dreamcast controller, which is one of my personal favorites. The first controller to have analog triggers. And that VMU, the memory unit that you could take your game saves with you. Gone. So there's no Dreamcast. I think some Zoomer made this list. Because where's the Dreamcast controller? Where's the Master System controller? You could go even further back. Get into the freaking ColecoVision. I would rate the shit out of the ColecoVision controller. Intellivision, Odyssey, Odyssey 2. Where's the trackpad for the NES? Like, let's a more full list would have those things. But I'll tell you what. Considering that this is a pretty thorough list, minus a few things, and it doesn't have the Steel Battalion controller because let's face it, who actually used that thing? It was $200. I still think this is a pretty good list. Where's the Mad Catz representation? Yeah, these are all first-party controllers, so no Mad Catz. No afterglow. Alright, well, this is my ranking of this list. Tell me how wrong I am in the chat. What's your opinion? Do you think the Nintendo controllers should get a little more love? The ones that I have rated so low? Do you think the PS1 and PS2 controllers should be rated higher? Do you think they should be F tier? They felt the PS1 controller felt super cheap. Like super cheap. But let's give some love up to the top. I think it's hard to debate the quality of the Xbox 360 controller and the PS5 controller. If you've played with a PS5 controller, you know you are holding a quality, well-made device. I wish the battery life was a little bit better, but man, kudos. Sony did a fantastic job in the PS5 controller, and they did a great job in the PS4 controller. It was the first controller of theirs that felt like it belonged, like it wasn't in my way. But nothing but love for Xbox 360 and Xbox One controllers, and the Nintendo Switch Pro controller is amazing. Now you notice the shape of all of those are kind of similar, right? Once these companies found a good design and they've stuck with it, they've just made slow improvements to it. This works now. Treebird posted a picture in the Discord. Let's pull up your ranking in the Discord. Oh, you posted a picture of the Steel Battalion star. I got you. Oh, so Riz, you're right. I rated the Duke controller a little too high because I have large hands. Most people would say D or F. Hard to argue against that because the button placement on the right side above that right analog, terrible button placement. And it's too big for most people. For me, it was a controller I could actually use. But the S controller, the Xbox S, Series S controller, or whatever they call it, controller S, is a better controller by far. And it's not on this list. So I would have rated the S probably in the mid to high Bs. It was a really good controller. But yes, the Duke was too big for most people. So, all right, that's my list. Thank you for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, post in the comments, what was your favorite game controller of all time? I want to see it. All right. Puts over the size of his hands more than anyone I know. Well, we're talking about controllers. We're talking about mice. I need stuff that's made for me, man. Y'all with your average hands, you're all being catered to by these game manufacturers. Some of us aren't. Treebeard, let them know. Yeah, 360 controller for PC gaming. Yes, I had a wired 360 controller. It finally crapped out on me. It was my original wired 360 controller that came with the system. Fantastic controller. Fantastic. I used that on my PC a lot, but it finally crapped out on me about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I had it as my backup to the Xbox One wireless that I use right now. 360's best controller of all time. I can't argue that. It's my favorite on this list. Wireless Wavebird. Yeah, because you played Smash Brothers. Right? I did give credit to the Wavebird, and honestly, the wireless functionality of the Wavebird was superb. It was the best wireless controller to date. Up to that point, there was no better wireless controller out there, even though I think the GameCube controller itself is kind of trash. Hey, look, honestly, the GameCube controller probably didn't need to be an F, but something had to be. And it's my least favorite of all of these. I could have put the Wii U tablet down there, but the portability of the Wii U tablet, being able to take your game into another room, it counted for something as a controller, functionality of the controller. So, all right, so we are done with this one.